Повний пакет, video номер 5. English version, original script. Title, Bankrupt at 22, lost his character, then created Mickey Mouse. Duration, 10 to 12 minutes. October 4th, 1923. A 21-year-old animator sits in a small Kansas City studio. His company, IOctober Films, is being forced into bankruptcy by creditors. He owes money he can't pay. His employees haven't been paid in weeks. His dream is over. Walt Disney is broke. Most people would quit animation forever, except that they're not meant for this industry. Find a normal job. But Walt makes a different choice. He packs his suitcase, borrows $40 from his uncle, and takes a train to California to start over. 5 years later, he'll lose his first successful character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, in one of the most brutal betrayals in entertainment history. But that loss will force him to create something bigger, something that will change the world forever. Mickey Mouse. This is the story of how bankruptcy and betrayal turned a failed animator into the most iconic entertainment mogul of all time. Let's rewind to 1920. Walt Disney was 19 years old, working as a commercial artist in Kansas City. He loved drawing. He loved animation. And he had a vision to create animated fairy tales. In 1922, Disney founded his first company, IOctober Films. He hired a small team of animators and started producing short animated films based on fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood and Cinderella. They were charming, creative, full of personality. But there was one problem. Disney had no idea how to run a business. He focused on making the cartoons as good as possible, spending more money than he was earning. He trusted a distributor in New York to pay him for the films. But the distributor cheated him, taking the cartoons and never sending payment. By 1923, Disney was drowning in debt. He couldn't pay his rent. He couldn't pay his employees. He was sleeping in his office and eating cold beans out of a can. On October 4th, 1923, one of Disney's creditors, his friend and animator Ub Iwerks, filed a petition forcing IOctober Films into bankruptcy. Disney was 21 years old. His first company was dead. Most people would have given up on animation. It was the 1920s. Jobs were hard to find. Animation was a risky, unstable industry. Disney had failed spectacularly. But Walt didn't see it as the end. He saw it as a lesson. In October 1923, Disney borrowed $40 from his uncle, packed a single suitcase, and took a train to Los Angeles. He moved in with his older brother Roy, who was recovering from tuberculosis in a veterans hospital. Walt had a plan. Start fresh. Build a new studio. Do it right this time. With Roy's help, Disney founded the Disney Brothers studio in their uncle's garage. They had no money, no equipment, and no contracts. But they had determination. Disney pitched a new series to distributors, Alice's Wonderland, a mix of live action and animation. A New York distributor, Margaret Winkler, liked it and ordered a series. Finally, Disney had a deal. The Alice comedies became a modest success. Disney was back in business. By 1927, he had a small team of animators and was producing cartoons regularly. But Disney wanted something bigger. He wanted a breakout character, a star. In 1927, Disney and Ub Iwerks created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Oswald was mischievous, energetic, and fun. Audiences loved him. The cartoons were a hit. Disney's distributor, Charles Mintz, signed a deal with Universal Pictures to produce Oswald cartoons. Money was finally coming in. Disney was building something real. But there was a problem Disney didn't see coming. In February 1928, Disney traveled to New York to renegotiate his contract with Mintz. He wanted more money to expand his team and improve the animation quality. But when Disney walked into the meeting, Mintz dropped a bomb. Mintz told Disney that he didn't need him anymore. Mintz had secretly hired away most of Disney's animators behind his back. And worse, Mintz owned the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Universal owned Oswald. Disney owned nothing. Mintz gave Disney two options: accept a lower salary and keep working on Oswald, or walk away and lose everything. Disney was devastated. He'd spent a year building Oswald into a star, and now he didn't own him. He'd been betrayed by his own distributor. Most people would have taken the deal, stayed on, made the cartoons for less money. At least they'd still have a job. But Walt refused. He walked out of the meeting. He lost Oswald. He lost most of his animators. He lost his biggest success. But he made a promise to himself. He would never let anyone else own his characters again. On the train ride back to California, Walt started sketching. He needed a new character, something that could replace Oswald, something that would be his. He drew a mouse. Originally, he named him Mortimer Mouse, but his wife, Lillian, said the name sounded too stuffy. She suggested Mickey instead, and just like that, Mickey Mouse was born. But creating a character was only half the battle. Disney needed to make Mickey successful, and in 1928, animation was changing. Sound had just come to movies. Talkies were the new sensation, but animated cartoons were still silent. Disney saw an opportunity. He decided to make the first cartoon with synchronized sound. It was called Steamboat Willie, and it featured Mickey Mouse as the star. Disney poured everything he had into Steamboat Willie. He mortgaged his house. He borrowed money from anyone who would lend it. He worked 18-hour days perfecting the animation and sound synchronization. On November 18, 1928, Steamboat Willie premiered at the Colony Theater in New York. It was a sensation. Audiences had never seen anything like it. Mickey Mouse whistling, music perfectly synced with the animation. It was magical. Overnight, Mickey Mouse became a star, bigger than Oswald ever was. Disney finally had his breakout. Over the next decade, Disney built an empire. Mickey Mouse became the most famous cartoon character in the world. Disney added Donald Duck, Goofy, and Pluto to his roster. In 1937, Disney released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first full-length animated feature film. Experts said it would fail. They called it Disney's folly. It made $8 million during the Great Depression. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $150 million today. Disney followed with Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi. Each one pushed the boundaries of what animation could be. In 1955, Disney opened Disneyland in California. Bankers rejected the idea over 300 times. They said a theme park based on cartoons would never work. It became one of the most visited places on Earth. By the time Walt Disney died in 1966, he had created an entertainment empire worth billions. Today, the Walt Disney Company is worth over $200 billion and owns Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, ESPN, and much more. And it all started with bankruptcy and betrayal. So what happened? Losing Laugh-O Graham forced Disney to start over. And starting over taught him how to run a business, how to manage money, how to protect his work. If Disney had succeeded with Laugh-O Graham, he probably would have stayed in Kansas City making small cartoons forever. He never would have moved to California. He never would have built an empire. Losing Oswald was the most painful moment of Disney's career, but it taught him the most important lesson. Ownership is everything. From that moment on, Disney owned every character he created. Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, every single one. That decision is why Disney became the most valuable entertainment company in history. Rejection forced Disney to innovate. After losing Oswald, he couldn't just make another cute rabbit. He had to do something different. Something better. That's why he added sound to Steamboat Willie. That's why he made Snow White. He couldn't compete by copying. He had to lead. Walt Disney went bankrupt at 21, lost his first character at 26, was rejected over 300 times by bankers. But every failure taught him something, and he used those lessons to build an empire that will outlive us all. Because failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the training for it.